I'm wearing my Texas sweatshirt today because as of now, I plan to move to Texas from New York City next year to escape this socialist hellhole. So yeah, if you're from Texas, let me know what I should do and what I should check out. But I figured today, let's look at some socialist TikToks. Let's hear some of their arguments and see what's going on in their little brains. Before we get started, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and let's get into it.
I need to explain to them. Mamdani is not a socialist. He's a democratic socialist, okay? Socialist countries are like North Korea or Cuba. You know what Mamdani is? A democratic socialist. And you know what else is democratic socialist countries? Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Denmark. Okay, he's like closer to the party of Copenhagen than Pyongyang. What democratic socialism believes in is still capitalism, but it is also like a really good safety net for its citizens. So they do believe in.
Oh my God, this is the most common and overused argument, fallacy that people on the left like to use about socialism. First of all, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway are not socialist countries, literally at all. They have less restrictions to their free market economy than we do. And if you wanted to call them anything with the word social involved, it would be better to say social democracy, which is basically what we have here as well. They just have a little bit less people, a little bit less diversity. They tax their middle class around 50%. It's not like they just tax the rich. They tax pretty much everyone, also the lower class. The thing that they have in common is that they are very homogenous. Pretty much everyone in these countries are white. They share the same religion, they speak the same language, and they share the same culture. And I'm not going to go too much into this because I've already talked about this in previous videos, but socialism and diversity are inherently incompatible. You need to choose one. Which one do you want?
But I want it now!
You can't bring in a bunch of immigrants to the United States of America, tell them that they don't need to assimilate, they don't need to learn English, they can speak their own language. If we do that, how do you expect all of us, with all these different views, to agree on what's best for the entire country? You gotta pick a side. You gotta pick a side. Because the only way to fairly assess what everybody in this country really wants is capitalism. You look at what people are demanding, where they're willing to spend their money, what they're willing to study, what they're willing to do for work, how much they're expecting to make. But if you want socialism where the government decides where we allocate resources because the government and the people own the means of production, then everyone needs to have the same opinion on everything, okay?
Remember, socialism will never work because every time it starts working and millions of people are pulled out of poverty, the country mysteriously gets bombed or invaded mysteriously or fucking obliterated mysteriously.
Are you talking about Germany? Are we talking about Germany? Because, yeah, Germany got invaded and bombed, and they were a socialist country. The Nazis were socialists. Hitler told them that we are going to take economic control of what used to be controlled by the Jews. Something that I think these socialist countries really need in order to even kick off is a common enemy, okay? The left is trying to use Trump, but we've seen this before. Nazis used the Jews. So they rallied the common people to basically agree that there was this one group of people or one entity that was evil and the cause of everyone's problems, which is obviously not the case. Hitler basically unified everybody with that hatred and convinced them that they all have each other's best interest in mind and that they can use socialism to achieve prosperity, when in reality, by the time that Germany was invaded, they were literally completely broke. And it took them a very long time to repair their economy through capitalism. So, yeah, I don't personally have any regrets with invading and bombing Germany. Maybe this is your like weird way of saying that, because I don't know what other country you would be referring to.
You often hear critics of Zoran Mandani say socialism doesn't work. And for proof, they point to countries like Venezuela and Cuba, where poverty, corruption, and political repression are widespread. But did you know that about half of the European Union's 140 largest cities are led by mayors from socialist political parties? That includes Paris, Barcelona, and Frankfurt. And if you take a look at the top of the list of countries on the 2025 World Happiness Report, many of them have long histories of socialist governance. I mean, just look at Finland, which is number 1 on the list for the 8th year.
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. Paris and Barcelona are not mentioned when he brings up the happiness index, because now he shifts over to talking about Finland, which we already covered is not a socialist country. We all know Paris is not doing very well at the moment. So I don't need to go too deep on that. But again, Finland is not a socialist country. They are a capitalistic society. That is why people are happy, because they are able to find success in doing things that they put effort into. Why aren't we allowed to mention Venezuela and Cuba? Those are actually socialist countries. The countries he's talking about are not socialist countries. He's talking about like individual people and mayors that might have socialist views, but are not imposing socialist legislation to the countries that they're in. But he doesn't want to talk about Venezuela and Cuba, which are actually socialist countries, and both of them are literally in free fall, and everyone in those countries are trying to flee to America as refugee seekers. Venezuela used to be a very prosperous country until they introduced socialism. And if you want to blame corruption instead of socialism, what you need to take into account is that a socialist government does not have the same checks and balances like the one that we have in the United States. Sure, there's always going to be some corruption here and there, but just imagine the level of corruption when you don't have any opposition. When you have leaders that claim that they know what's best for everybody, there is no room for diversity and opinion and freedom. It's already removed. So if you think that corruption is mutually exclusive from socialism, that is where your entire philosophy is flawed. You think that human nature is all good, right? You would need that for socialism to work. And yet you think that everybody that appreciates capitalism is evil. Do you think greed is just something that occurred within human beings over the past 100 years? Do you think greed is only a human trait because of capitalism?
Okay, here's my final commentary on the Read Lenin, and you'll understand why electoral politics and any engagement with it is completely useless.
Okay, you actually can't make this up. You actually cannot make this up. The girl that is saying that people should read Lenin, which is horrifying, but you know what? This is a free country. So she can do whatever she wants. But she's telling people that they should read Lenin. And then in the next video, she is showing us that she gets disability checks for being ADHD. This is precisely why socialism and communism don't work. In response to the guy that we showed before this, I said you would have to believe that all of human nature is equal and everyone's willing to work the same amount and put in the same amount of effort and always agree on everything. And yet you have people who clearly have enough money and enough autonomy to get a nose ring and wear a face full of makeup and be really interested in fashion. You have someone like this who's collecting disability checks from the government because they have ADHD. Instead of putting in the effort to learn how to manage your ADHD, learn how to harness it even, or just accept that the fact that life can be hard sometimes, instead of doing that, she is using the government as a crutch. While we have people out there who literally are missing limbs from fighting in the army, people who are paranoid schizophrenic, who can't hold a job, people that are blind, those are people that receive disability checks. And this girl on TikTok is taking from that pool for her ADHD.
talk about some socialist policies that really did work. What is socialism? Well, it basically means there's not really rich people and there's not really poor people. Everybody sits in the middle. You can still have a nice car outside, but you can't be a billionaire. People go into food banks and billionaires do not coexist in a socialist space.
This person doesn't understand the economy and doesn't understand the concept of value creation, okay? Billionaires are not just like some people that took a bunch of money from society and stole it and ran away. Billionaires are billionaires because they created new revenue streams. That money did not exist in this society before them. For example, the apps that you are using, like TikTok and Instagram, if we talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Instagram and Facebook are billion-dollar companies because they created entirely new industries. Influencers, influencer marketing, social media content marketing, content management, advertising, all of these things were not roles or jobs available before Instagram. This generated new wealth. This wasn't just money that existed in the country already. No, they created it. They have billion-dollar companies because they created billions of dollars of money for the economy in this country. That's the first thing, okay? The second thing is billionaires aren't just like hoarding a bunch of money under their couch. Their money is invested into different things, most of it being the companies that they are employing thousands and thousands of people to work for. If billionaires don't exist, the economy loses billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. And then there's a ton of funding that you lose through your taxes that you want to use for social program funding.
You hate capitalism, you hate the billionaires, and you want to put the working class in power? You should join the revolutionary communists of America.
Let's talk about what capitalism looks like, socialism, and communism in really elementary terms for these people. Capitalism is like you built a shovel, right? Let's say you just built a shovel. You have a shovel. I don't have a shovel, but somebody asked me if I could help them and dig a hole for $100. I said, you know what? It might take me 3 hours to dig this hole, but I'll make $100 and then I can give you $10 for your shovel. And you don't have to do any physical work. Cool. Shake hands. I do the digging. I take $90 and I give you $10. And then the government takes 30% of my $90 to use on welfare programs. That's what we have currently, right? Socialism is more like this. You have a shovel. Somebody asked me if I can dig a hole for them. It's going to take me 3 hours, but the government said that I can only charge $50. And I already agreed that I would pay you $10. So I would only be making $40 for 3 hours of digging, physical labor. And I don't really know if I want to do that anymore. But I guess I won't really make money if I don't do it because it's not like anyone created new demand or a new job for me. So I'm going to do it for less money and I'm going to give you $10 and I'm only going to take home a fraction of what I did under capitalism. Because you were not willing to decrease the cost to rent your shovel, because why would you? And so I'm not making nearly as much money for my physical labor. Let's talk about communism. You have a shovel that you built. I also have a shovel that I built because I can't pay you to use yours, so I have to make an exact same shovel to do the work that I need to do. All of us have a bunch of shovels, and now we have way too many shovels than we would ever need for anything. Somebody asked me if I could help them dig a hole because they are disabled and they can't physically do it themselves. But the government said I have to actually go work down the street on a farm, so I'm not allowed to help you with your hole digging because it's not really considered a priority. Also, I really wanted to study gender sexuality in college, but I couldn't because it wasn't productive and it didn't help generate money in the economy to fund communist welfare programs, meaning funding every single thing needed by everybody in the country. Obviously, my gender sexuality degree wouldn't help generate too much for anyone, so I wasn't allowed to do it. Actually, I wasn't allowed to go study at all because I was needed on the farm to help with food production. And anyone that likes to say that we used to live in not even a society, but we used to live in this way where we only made what we needed and we never needed anything extra. Look, all of these nice things that we have as liberal societies now, progressive societies now. For example, being able to study the arts or go and see a Broadway show or make music or take cooking classes. All of those things are only possible because as a species, we stopped living as hunter-gatherers and we moved into food production states and then had the Industrial Revolution. This is not a controversial take. This is bipartisan. If you read Guns, Germs, and Steel, you will see when European colonialists went to parts of Africa and Australia, New Guinea, a lot of societies there or tribes there did not even have written language or ceramics because they were still living as hunter-gatherers, meaning they had to use every single part of their day to generate enough food to survive through hunting and gathering. They had no other capacity to allocate any time to ceramics or writing or anything else. This is not controversial. The person that wrote this book is very, very, very liberal. It is well known that if we live in a communist society where we all just make exactly what we need for each other and nothing more, nobody has time to do anything else. There's no time to create innovations. There's no time to study the arts. There's no time for leisure or hobbies or interests. You are strictly here to help the collective consciousness. There is no individuality. That's it. That's it. And socialism has only ever been a stepping stone to communism. Yep. So if you want to pretend like we would be in this woo-hoo-hoo utopia communist country living like our ancestors quickly abandoned the way that they lived once they realized that they could work as a society to have some people do X, Y, and Z, and we pay them to do X, Y, and Z while we do something else that makes sense with our time and our capabilities and our skill set. And we pay each other for the things that we produce. That is how we advanced as a species. I'm going to end it there because that one really pissed me off and I need to go lay down before I literally lose my mind. So I will see you in the next video and I hope that you enjoyed this one.